So in this video, I wanted to talk about the emotions that I've been experiencing early into my diagnosis. It's been about a month now since I was diagnosed with ocular melanoma, and I've experienced and am continuing to experience a whole range of different emotions, some not too bad, others really difficult. And so I wanted to share them, not because I think there's a standard set of emotions that people will experience, but I just wanted to share what I've been experiencing and would be keen to hear from you if you're early into your diagnosis, whether you've been feeling similar emotions and whether you've been feeling similar emotions but for different reasons to me. And equally, if you're further into your journey from diagnosis, then how you're feeling too. This is a rare cancer, it's a rare condition, so I guess I'm just trying to raise some awareness around it. So when I was first diagnosed, when I got the news from the consultant, I did become quite tearful, but to be honest, we then went quickly to see the nurse specialist who told me that I would likely be coming in for treatment in December, which is what's happening. I'm actually going to Moorfields next week for my brachytherapy, and it was all so quick really. I was then taken to another part of Moorfields to have pre-op assessments, so blood tests, height and weight, blood pressure, things like that, so that all of that would have been done by the time I had my procedure. It was just really weird. I kind of felt a bit numb because I was just going with whatever was happening. I remember texting a couple of my friends and telling them, because they knew I was having these tests. I was with my husband, so we were kind of talking about at least the fact, Moorfields were really good. They were getting things sorted. We knew what the plan would be. But at the same time, this disbelief, I guess, not really, it hadn't really sunk in, even though I'd suspected that something was really wrong. To hear it for certain, that's a whole different kettle of fish. And after we left Moorfields, we went to get something to eat. And while we were waiting for our food, I remember just going into planning mode around, it was like booking hotels or booking trains, just trying to maybe hold on to a sense of certainty or just trying to maybe regain a bit of control. And so I would say maybe a few days to a week after the diagnosis, I felt quite numb. I remember speaking to a friend on the phone, one of the friends I'd texted. I think a few days later we had a phone call. She asked me how I was feeling and I said, I really don't know. I don't think anything had sunk in at that point. Yeah, I literally didn't feel upset or angry or anxious or anything. I just felt pretty numb. And then I think the next sort of fears that came in were the fear and anxiety and the fear of how long I'm going to live for. There was a real sense of not knowing, this sense that my husband and I weren't going to grow old together. That was all off the cards now, and I would be okay for periods in the day where I was distracted and doing things. I carried on going into work, but then there would be points in the day where I suddenly remembered I have cancer. It's not like I forgot, but I guess it kind of gets pushed to the side, and then I would remember and this anxiety would kind of shoot up, I think like from my stomach all the way up my throat and just almost take my breath away. I didn't feel anger particularly until I started telling people, and their reactions caused me to feel angry because I felt that some of the people I told didn't respond in the way that I hoped. I'm trying to see it from their perspective. I think perhaps they were in shock or they just didn't know what to say. I mean, what do you say? But their responses, I felt dismissed because of their responses. I felt like they weren't really getting it. I felt that they were trying to put positive spin on something that I didn't feel in that moment was positive. I'm all for trying to remain hopeful and positive about things, but some people were just overly positive to the point almost like, I think, in denial about it. And so I suspect that was more for them than it was for me because they were having trouble. But that left me feeling angry, quite sort of isolated, because I thought no one really knows what it's like to be in my head and in my position, or no one around me, should I say. And I've had feelings of grief as well. So I guess a sadness that life is likely, it will change. It cannot be the same. The future that I thought I would have, I think will be different. I don't know what the future looks like, but there will be more medical appointments and checkups that I wouldn't have to have if I didn't have cancer, and maybe there will be certain things I can do now which I won't be able to do in the future. So the grief was attached to a lot of assumptions about the future and the unknown, and I don't, there are lots of things I don't know, but when I think about the what ifs of those things happening, I do feel sadness because I would be sad to lose those things. So for example, the radiotherapy that I will have in this eye, I will need injections to try and reduce the damage or at least slow it down, but I may well lose the sight totally in this eye, and I don't know if that will affect my ability to drive. So you can drive with one eye, but it's whether I will have the confidence to do that. And driving is something I really enjoy doing, which probably sounds a bit weird, but I do. It gives me such a sense of freedom and just being able to get in the car, put the music on loud and just get on and drive. And the sadness around perhaps driving maybe being a bit more difficult in the future and being a bit more challenging, and also the worry around whether whether the cancer will spread in future. I think from what I understand, the smaller the tumour and the earlier it is caught, the better chance you have of it not spreading, but that doesn't mean to say it can't. And so really, I don't feel I would ever want to not be scanned and have those scans. That's a whole nother story. I don't think I'm being recommended for routine scans, but I will find a way of having them, because I don't want to go through life not doing that and then it spreads and by the time I realise it's too late. So that almost having to be mindful of my health in that sense for the longer term or for the rest of my life, that is a sad thing as well. I mean, I'm not saying it's bad to be concerned or look out for your health at all. We should all be doing that anyway, but I think cancer makes that almost like not optional. I think as well my overall kind of baseline level of anxiety has increased. So there are things that maybe I would get a bit worried about, but they wouldn't bother me too much. And lately, those sorts of things have bothered me a lot more. And I don't think it's because of those things. I think it's because my general level of anxiety has increased at the moment because of the unknowns and the what ifs. And so because of that, my ability to deal with stresses in the way I used to isn't as great at the moment. But there's also some weirdly positive emotions and perspectives that have come since my diagnosis. And I have asked myself, am I just still in denial? Am I really not processing this, or are these genuine? So I do feel a sense of hope. I'm trying to remain hopeful that the treatment will be successful, that it will shrink the tumour. I don't believe that there's a cure for this. So while I think I'll probably always have to be mindful of my health, I'm trying to stay hopeful that the treatment will be successful. And also that whatever happens, if I do lose the sight in this eye, or if I ever have to have this eye removed, and I'm not saying that won't be difficult for those things, there will be all sorts of feelings that come up with those things, but if I still have my life, if I'm still able to be here and enjoy life, then I'll be grateful. Cancer is giving me a newfound gratitude for life. I have made another video about the illusion that cancer has shattered in my life. I'll put a link up on the screen if you want to watch that after this one, but it's definitely given me a renewed appreciation for life. I appreciate my husband more. I appreciate the things that he does for me. I've been reflecting a lot on my friendships, the close friendships I have, what those people mean to me, and recently I sent cards to those friends to tell them how much I appreciated their friendship. I'm not very good at doing that face to face, but I wanted to write to them for that. I also appreciate what might be called the mundane stuff. So driving, like I said, I enjoy the freedom of driving. I love it when I come out my front door of a morning and I can see the sun rising, just the beauty of those things. Eating nice food, nourishing my body, feeling grateful of having this home, how lucky I am to have a job. My job is challenging at times. I work in mental health, but I am grateful for that job and the privilege of working with the people I work with, and kind of been calling it the gift of a cancer diagnosis, which sounds absolutely ridiculous, I know. I would rather not have cancer, let's be clear, and I'm not minimising cancer diagnosis, but the reality is I've got cancer. I've spent so much of my life worrying about death. I remember having death anxiety when I was 7 years old. I remember sitting up in bed crying because I was worried about the people around me dying. And then when my father died when I was 13, that's an age where you don't really want death coming into your life, and that's led to a real fascination for me of death and a fear at the same time. The fear of losing people around me and the fear of how I might die. I don't know what the future holds. I may live many, many years. I may not. I don't know. But in some ways, my fears around death, the things I was fearful of, haven't changed since getting this cancer diagnosis. And that's because cancer has really brought some things into a sharp focus. It's kind of shattered certain illusions, and I was comfortable with certain things. Death was very distant before, but now it's almost like, yeah, it's right here. It's very much in my mind or on my mind a lot of the time. And I've made a video on that if you want to find out a bit more about that and what I'm talking about, because I know it might sound really weird, but I'll put a video on the screen where you can find out a bit more about that, what I mean by that. I hope that's been helpful. If you are in a similar position to me, and if you want to, let me know in the comments what sort of emotions you've been going through, and also if you have been able to take any, dare I say, positives, or are there certain changes that have come about in your perspective of life that you have found helpful since being diagnosed. And for anyone who is supporting a loved one with a cancer diagnosis, I hope this has given you some idea of what sort of emotions people do go through. I'm not saying mine is an exhaustive list and it's the definitive list, because it's not. This is just my perspective, but I hope it's been helpful for you too. Go well, everybody, and I will see you soon.